phone vibrated in his palm just as the morning sun spilled through the cracked blinds, lighting up the small apartment that smelled of instant coffee and last night's rain. Marcus Ellison froze when he saw the screen, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might bruise his ribs from the inside. He had sent the message already. There was no pulling it back now. Three simple words, heavy with everything he had never said out loud, sat glowing on his phone like a confession written in fire. I love you. It was meant for his daughter, a routine message of reassurance he sent every morning before dropping her at school, something to remind her that even when life was hard and money was tight, she was never alone. But he hadn't sent it to her. He had sent it to his boss. And now, as fear crawled up his spine and shame burned his face, there was a knock at the door, steady and deliberate, as if the world itself had decided this was the moment everything would change. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when people choose compassion over judgment, take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Talk of Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may be breaking in silence. Marcus had been awake since before dawn, the kind of early morning that came not from discipline but from worry. His daughter Amara lay asleep on the couch behind him, wrapped in a blanket too thin for winter but warmed by the steady rhythm of her breathing. He had given her his bed as he always did, after she had another nightmare about her mother, whose absence still felt like a fresh wound despite the years that had passed. Being a single black father in a city that rarely slowed down for anyone had taught Marcus how to move quietly, how to carry exhaustion like a second skin, how to love fiercely even when the world seemed determined to grind him down. Every day was a balancing act between work deadlines, school meetings, unpaid bills, and the constant, low-level fear that one wrong step could send everything crashing down. He worked as a maintenance supervisor for a mid-sized corporate building downtown, a job he had fought hard to keep after his wife passed away and his attendance became unpredictable. His boss, Evelyn Harper, was known throughout the company as sharp, efficient, and emotionally distant. She ran meetings like clockwork and expected results without excuses. Marcus respected her professionalism, but he also feared her, the way one fears a storm cloud on the horizon, knowing it could break at any moment. She was the last person he would ever want to expose his vulnerability to, the last person who should ever see the soft, unguarded parts of him that belonged only to his daughter. That morning, as he rushed to get Amara ready for school, his phone buzzed with an email reminder from work about an inspection scheduled later that day. He typed quickly, distracted, fingers moving on muscle memory as he sent Amara her usual message of love while also trying to reply to his boss's email. In that brief, careless overlap, the mistake happened. The message went to Evelyn Harper. By the time he realized it, his breath caught in his throat, and the room seemed to tilt. He imagined her reading it, her expression hardening, her assumptions filling in the gaps with something ugly or inappropriate. He imagined the rumors, the HR meeting, the quiet escort out of the building with his belongings in a cardboard box. He imagined Amara asking why they had to move again. He spent the next hour in a haze, walking Amara to school under a sky so bright it felt almost cruel. Daylight flooded the streets, children laughed, traffic hummed, and life went on as if his world were not quietly unraveling. He kissed his daughter's forehead, watched her disappear through the school gates, and stood there for a long moment, breathing deeply, telling himself to stay calm. He checked his phone over and over, but there was no reply. The silence felt heavier than any response could have been. By mid-morning, Marcus was at home, trying to fix a leaky faucet while his thoughts spiraled. Every sound made him flinch. When the knock finally came, it was firm but not aggressive, the kind of knock that suggested intention rather than anger. He wiped his hands on his jeans, heart racing, and opened the door. Evelyn Harper stood there, framed by sunlight, her tailored coat immaculate, her eyes unreadable. She looked different outside the office, less like an authority figure and more like a real person, but that did nothing to ease the knot in his chest. She stepped inside without a word, taking in the modest apartment with a quick glance. Marcus waited for the reprimand, the accusation, the professional boundary being drawn in concrete. Instead, she closed the door gently behind her. The room was quiet except for the distant sounds of the city waking up. Then she spoke, her voice low, almost hesitant, as if she were choosing each word carefully. She told him she had received his message and that she wanted to talk not as a boss to an employee, but as one human being to another. Marcus felt his knees weaken, the weight of expectation pressing down on him. Evelyn explained that when she read the message, her first instinct had been confusion, then curiosity, and finally something unexpected. She had thought about the time she had overheard Marcus on the phone with his daughter in the break room, his voice soft and steady, full of a warmth she rarely saw in the office. She had thought about how he always volunteered for extra shifts, how he never complained, how he carried himself with quiet dignity even when he was clearly exhausted. She realized the message wasn't meant for her, but it had reached her anyway, like a window opening briefly into a life she had never bothered to see. Marcus listened, his shame slowly giving way to a cautious hope. He admitted his mistake, his fear, his desperation to keep his job and provide for his child. He told her about Amara, about losing his wife, about the long days and sleepless nights. He didn't dress it up or ask for pity. He just told the truth because in that moment it felt like the only thing left to do. Evelyn surprised him by sharing something of her own. She spoke about her upbringing, about a childhood shaped by high expectations and emotional distance, about a career built on achievement rather than connection. She confessed that she often felt alone, even in rooms full of people, and that the message he sent had stirred something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Not romantic feelings, she clarified, but a reminder of the kind of love that exists quietly without conditions or expectations, the kind that shows up every morning no matter how tired you are. As the sunlight shifted across the room, the conversation softened. The power dynamic that had once loomed so large seemed to dissolve, replaced by a mutual recognition of shared humanity. Evelyn told Marcus she had no intention of reporting the incident or punishing him. Instead, she wanted to help. She asked about his schedule, his childcare challenges, his long commute. She offered flexibility, remote work options when possible, and access to company resources he hadn't known existed. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt seen, not as a liability or a line item on a budget, but as a person. Before she left, Evelyn paused at the door. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice so it felt like a secret meant only for him. She told him that love in all its forms had a way of finding the right people at the wrong times, and that sometimes mistakes were just invitations to look closer. The words settled into Marcus's chest, warm and steady, and he realized he was breathing easier than he had in years. The rest of the day unfolded differently. At work, Marcus moved with a lightness he hadn't felt before, his tasks no longer overshadowed by constant fear. He noticed small things like the way sunlight streamed through the lobby windows at noon or the way his coworkers laughed during lunch. When he picked Amara up from school, he held her hand a little tighter, grateful in a way that went beyond words. That evening, as they sat together doing homework at the kitchen table, he told her how much he loved her, not in a text this time, but out loud where she could hear it and feel it. Days turned into weeks and the changes Evelyn had promised began to take shape. Marcus's schedule became more manageable, his stress eased, and his confidence grew. He started sleeping better, smiling more, dreaming again. He enrolled Amara in an after-school art program she had always wanted to join, and he found himself attending her events without constantly checking his watch. The apartment felt brighter, not because anything physical had changed, but because hope had moved in quietly and made itself at home. Evelyn, too, seemed different at work. She listened more, delegated with trust, and occasionally joined her team for lunch. She and Marcus maintained a professional relationship, but there was an undercurrent of mutual respect that hadn't been there before. They didn't talk about the message again, but its impact lingered in the way they treated each other and others with a little more patience and understanding. One afternoon, months later, Marcus stood on the sidewalk outside Amara's school, watching her run toward him with a smile that lit up her whole face. The sun was high, the day warm, and for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a possibility. He thought about how close he had come to losing everything over a simple mistake, and how that same mistake had opened a door he didn't even know existed. He thought about the power of kindness, of listening, of choosing compassion when it would be easier to judge. As the story draws near its end, if this journey has touched your heart even a little, if it has reminded you of the quiet strength it takes to love and keep going when life feels heavy, please take a moment to engage with this video. Like it, share it, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. Your interaction helps spread messages of hope to others who may be walking a similar path. And before the final moments fade, here is a special request. Please comment the words "kindness matters" below as a small but powerful reminder that empathy can change lives in ways we may never fully see. That night after Amara was asleep, Marcus sat by the window looking out at the city lights. He thought about the message that had started it all, about the fear and the grace that followed, about the way love had a habit of showing up where it was least expected. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time he trusted that whatever came next, he would face it with the same quiet courage that had carried him this far. And somewhere across the city, Evelyn Harper likely slept a little more peacefully too, reminded that even in a world driven by deadlines and expectations, a simple expression of love could still ripple outward, touching lives in ways that felt almost miraculous.